Yo, what's good, guys? It's your boy TonyB, and I'm back with another MJ video. Today we got something a little bit different. We got the 1980 Grammy loss that created Thriller. So this is not a song. This is a video detailing of how Michael felt that night after everything that happened that night in the 1980 Grammys. And I really wanted to check this out too because this gives us more insight of how like the MJ movie is gonna be, basically, because it's mostly covering his off the wall era and the Thriller era. So this is definitely gonna be a part of it. So I definitely want to see what happened that night so I can understand what's gonna happen in the movie. So let's get it, guys. Let's get it. Pause it.
February 27th, 1980, Los Angeles. The Shrine Auditorium is glowing under stage lights, and inside the building, the biggest names in music are waiting for the final envelopes to be opened. Sitting in a black tuxedo, just 21 years old, is Michael Jackson. And on paper, this is supposed to be his coronation. Off the Wall isn't just successful, it's everywhere. 4 top 10 hits, millions of albums sold in months. Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, dominating radio. Rock With You, playing in clubs across America.
I love Rock With You. I still, to this day, I still gotta rank my favorite MJ albums, but I'm really trying to think of that right now because that's gonna be like a hard video for me. I'm not gonna lie. We might do that like probably next month or something like that, but we definitely gonna get that soon.
America. Critics are calling it a breakthrough. The industry is calling him reborn. The former child star has officially become a solo powerhouse.
Yeah.
And tonight, he's nominated for the biggest prize of all, Album of the Year. The momentum feels unstoppable. The narrative feels perfect. The numbers back it up. Even the media buzz suggests this could be a sweep. Michael Jackson isn't just attending the Grammys that night. He's arriving as the future of pop music. But by the end of that ceremony, something shifts. No outburst, no public anger. Just a quiet moment that insiders would later say changed everything. Because when the most important award of the night was announced, it wasn't his name. And what happened inside Michael Jackson after that loss would fuel one of the most aggressive, calculated, and historic takeovers the music industry had ever seen. The question is, was this simply a loss? Or was this the night the industry created the most unstoppable force it had ever witnessed?
They created a monster.
The star who walked
a good
in
monster, not
expecting
a bad monster.
to win.
By
the time Michael Jackson stepped into the Shrine Auditorium on February 27th, 1980, he wasn't walking in as a hopeful nominee. He was walking in with momentum that felt undeniable. Off the Wall, released on August 10th, 1979, had exploded beyond expectations. It wasn't just a successful album, it was a cultural shift. Don't Stop Till You Get Enough had gone to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and topped the R&B charts. Rock With You followed the same path. She's Out of My Life showed vulnerability. The title track Off the Wall became an anthem. 4 top 10 hits from one album. That was rare air. By Grammy night, the album had already sold millions in the United States and was climbing toward multi-platinum status. Radio couldn't escape it. Clubs couldn't stop playing it. Critics praised its polish, its fusion of disco, pop, R&B, funk, and jazz. And behind it all was Quincy Jones, one of the most respected producers in the industry, adding a layer of legitimacy that awards voters traditionally respected. This wasn't teen pop. It wasn't novelty disco. It was sophisticated, layered, and precise. Michael was nominated for 4 awards that night, including Album of the Year, the category that defines artistic dominance. At just 21 years old, he had successfully transitioned from child star to adult solo powerhouse. The media framed him as reborn. The industry saw him as ascendant. Even competitors acknowledged the impact. On paper, everything lined up. Commercial success, critical acclaim, cultural relevance, crossover dominance. It looked like the perfect formula for a sweep. And as the envelopes began to open that night in Los Angeles, it felt less like a question of if Michael Jackson would win big, and more like how big. But one category still loomed over the ceremony, and it would define the night.
As they say, it's not F, but win.
As the night moved toward its final stretch, the energy inside the Shrine Auditorium shifted. The earlier categories had come and gone. Michael Jackson had already taken home Best Male R&B Vocal Performance for Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. It was a win, and he accepted it gracefully, thanking God, his mother Catherine, Quincy Jones, and the Academy. Polite, composed, controlled. But everyone knew that wasn't the real prize. Album of the Year was the statement.
Album of the Year.
It was the industry's seal of approval. It was where legends were separated from hitmakers. Michael sat in the audience in his black tuxedo, afro perfectly shaped, only 21 years old, but carrying the biggest
This part, I'm not gonna lie. I think his name's Jafar Jackson. Out of all the most of the movie that he's gonna do, I think the off the wall part of the movie, that's gonna fit him the most best. Like literally, I can see Jafar like looking like MJ right here. It's literally his look, his light skin self, like caramel tone with the sparkly leather jacket suit and that hair. This era, that off the wall era, fits Jafar perfectly. I'm not gonna lie. Out of all the other eras, so I'm definitely gonna be interested in seeing that.
Crossover Album of the Year. Off the Wall had outpaced expectations commercially and culturally. It had dominated radio across formats. It had broken him free from the Jacksons. This was supposed to be the moment the establishment confirmed what the charts already had. Then the envelope opened. The winner for Album of the Year was announced, Billy Joel for 52nd Street. Applause filled the auditorium. Cameras cut to Billy Joel walking to the stage. And for a brief second, the lens found Michael. No dramatic reaction, no visible anger, just a composed expression, the kind that reveals nothing and everything at the same time. He clapped, and that was it. The morning after the Grammys, the headlines weren't explosive, but the undertone was impossible to ignore. Off the Wall had been one of the defining albums of 1979. It had crossed racial lines, dominated both pop and R&B charts, and introduced a polished, dance-driven sound that would shape the decade. So when it lost Album of the Year, the reaction wasn't outrage. It was confusion. Billboard and major...
Sorry for pausing. I'm not gonna lie. Looking at Michael's dancing in the 70s, like that era Off the Wall, and then each era after that, bro, he got better at dancing every era, which is crazy. We see him as like the greatest like dancing entertainment like artist of all time. But literally seeing his Off the Wall dance and then how he danced during the Off the Wall era to how he dances like Dangerous basically, or History era, even though it's different styles because that was 70s and that's 90s, but still like that's the way his movement is. It's just way better in the 90s. I'm not gonna lie. I saw that comment on one of my videos said MJ in the 90s was his dancing prime. I'm not gonna lie. I'm starting to like think that is. I'm not gonna lie. I think his prime was the bad era, like voice wise or like musically wise, or that's his peak. And I think the 90s was his dancing peak, like where he like could dance to anything.
Music publications had spent months praising the album's precision and innovation. Critics highlighted Quincy Jones's production, the layered arrangements, the tight rhythm sections, and Michael's vocal control. This wasn't lightweight disco, it was engineered pop sophistication. Many insiders believed it represented where mainstream music was heading, and yet the Academy leaned toward Billy Joel's 52nd Street, an album rooted in adult contemporary sensibilities, jazz influences, and a safer, more traditional structure.
I think I heard of him, but I never heard
Joel was already an established figure. Michael was the youthful disruptor. At the time, the Grammys had a reputation for favoring artists who fit a certain mold. Singer-songwriters, adult contemporary performers, and acts perceived as serious musicians. Dance records and black crossover artists were often celebrated in genre categories but rarely elevated to the top honor. Very few black artists had won Album of the Year by 1980. That context mattered. There was no public scandal, no dramatic protest, but within industry circles, a subtle narrative formed. Off the Wall had the numbers, it had the impact, it had the cultural momentum. So why didn't it have the trophy? Some suggested it was timing, others pointed to voting demographics within the Recording Academy. And quietly, some observers began acknowledging an uncomfortable pattern. That black artists could dominate charts yet still struggle for full institutional recognition. And while the press debated, someone else was processing the result in silence. Because Quincy Jones never forgot that night, and neither did Michael. Years later, Quincy Jones would look back at February 27, 1980, and describe it as a turning point. Not a public scandal, not a dramatic meltdown,
Wow.
but a moment that sharpened something inside Michael Jackson. Quincy wasn't an outsider speculating. He was the architect behind Off the Wall. By 1980, he was already one of the most respected producers in the world, with decades of experience in jazz, film scoring, and orchestration. He understood how the industry worked. He understood the politics of voting bodies, and he understood when an album had truly shifted the culture. From his perspective, Off the Wall had done exactly that. Quincy would later say the Grammy loss deeply motivated Michael. It wasn't about ego, it was about validation. Michael believed he had delivered a near-perfect record, commercially explosive, musically sophisticated, culturally unifying, and yet the highest institutional honor went elsewhere. That disconnect stayed with him. But here's what's important. Quincy never described Michael as angry. He described him as focused, competitive, determined. Michael didn't rant. He recalibrated. Quincy noticed a change after 1980. The conversation shifted. The goals got bigger. Michael wasn't just talking about making great music anymore. He was talking about making the biggest album ever created. Not one that could be debated. Not one that might win. One that voters would have no choice but to recognize. That distinction matters, because this wasn't bitterness, it was strategy. Michael already studied charts obsessively. He already chased perfection in the studio. But after that Grammy night, the ambition expanded beyond artistry. It became about scale, impact, domination. And if Off the Wall wasn't considered undeniable enough, then the next project would be built differently. And what came next wouldn't just aim for awards, it would aim to overwhelm the entire industry. Here's where the story gets complicated. Michael Jackson never stood on a stage and said he was robbed. He never accused the Academy of corruption. He didn't storm out of the Shrine Auditorium. On the surface, he handled the loss with grace. But years later, in interviews throughout the 1980s and 1990s, he made something clear. He felt Off the Wall didn't receive the respect it deserved. That word, respect, comes up repeatedly. He believed the album had broken barriers. It blended pop, disco, funk, and R&B in a way that crossed racial and genre lines. It sold millions. It dominated radio. It helped redefine what mainstream pop could sound like. And yet, when it came to the industry's highest validation, it was confined to an R&B category. In 1980, very few black artists had won Album of the Year. The Grammys had a pattern of celebrating black performers within genre lanes, while reserving the top prize for artists seen as universal or traditional. That reality wasn't a conspiracy, it was a structural dynamic of the time. From Michael's perspective, the numbers said one thing. The culture said one thing, but the trophy said something else. Did he feel cheated? There's no direct quote proving that. But did he feel underestimated? Almost certainly. Michael was intensely competitive. He internalized criticism. He measured success precisely. Chart positions, sales figures, impact. So when an album he believed was near flawless fell short in the most visible category, it likely didn't feel neutral. It felt like a ceiling. After the 1980 Grammys, something subtle but powerful shifted in Michael Jackson's ambition. Off the Wall had already proven he could succeed as an adult solo artist. But success wasn't the same as dominance, and dominance was now the goal. Throughout 1980 and into 1981, Michael began speaking openly about wanting to create the biggest selling album of all time. That wasn't casual ambition. That was calculated intent.
32 million.
Stations, rock stations. No more category ceilings. When he reunited with Quincy Jones to begin work on the next project in 1981, the mindset was different. The sessions that would become Thriller took place primarily at Westlake Recording Studios in Los Angeles. He expanded beyond disco grooves into rock with Beat It, brought horror theatrics into pop with Thriller, and tightened dance rhythms with Billie Jean. Each choice widened the audience. This wasn't reactionary anger. It was strategic expansion. If Off the Wall could be boxed into R&B and disco lanes, Thriller would blur every boundary. It would force pop radio, rock radio, MTV, and international markets to converge. Michael wasn't trying to win one category anymore. He was trying to eliminate the possibility of losing. And when Thriller was released on November 30th, 1982, it didn't just perform well, it overwhelmed the system that had once placed limits around him. And when Grammy night came around again, the outcome looked very different.
Yeah, man, like, it's crazy. He had to wait another like 5 years basically to get that album of the year that he lost this year, which is a very long time. So I don't know how he must felt when like that all that time he was like waiting for that moment again, which he got, which I'm so glad he got. Man, I can't wait to see the movie and see how actually Michael like felt and stuff like that, and like hear his words, not his words, but like in the actors performing. And I can't wait to see that and the behind the scenes and how like Quincy Jones act and all the people around him and how it led up to Thriller. I can't wait to see that. I can't wait to see that. And two guys, once the movie comes out, I'm going to be releasing a video of like my review of the movie and stuff like that, and like what I thought of the movie. So if you have not watched the movie, I'll probably release that a day later after I watch the movie. So that'll probably be that weekend. So if you have not seen the movie, I probably recommend skipping that video. But you can watch it if you want. But spoiler alert, because I'm going to watch that movie and I'm going to talk about it with the homies and stuff. So I might bring them on for the first time and y'all can hear what we thought of the movie. So yeah, I'll see y'all then. So I'll see y'all later. Peace.